Okay, this is Canada, and I'm trying to see, this is the map, and we border them. Canada borders the United States, and we also have Greenland, and yeah. Historical development. Before European exploration of North America, indigenous people inhabited the area, developing diverse society within what is now Canada. French settlers established the current lands of Canada as New France from 1608 to 1763. The French established fur trade and strong alliances with indigenous groups in the Canadian lands. British settlers gained control over New France from 1763 to 1867 and remained influential over Canada. North America Act on July 1st, 1867 united Ontario, Quebec, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick into the Dominion of Canada. This granted self-governing powers within the British Empire. This also led to the expansion of Canada, gaining territories like the British Columbia and Prince Edward Island. During World War II, Canada had a strong role. Their involvement marked significant contributions from both their military and civilian involvement. The Canadian military were involved in many World War II campaigns like D-Day. Unlike other countries involved, women played a key role during this time in non-combat roles like clerks, cooks, or drivers, as well as more involved roles such as wireless operators and parachute riggers in order to free up men for combat duties. This marked a transformative era in Canadian military history. And for sovereignty, the Statute of Westminster in 1931 was an act that granted full legislative independence of Canada. Later in 1982, the patriation of the Constitution was where Canada gained full constitutional independence from Britain with the passage of the Canada Act, which allowed amendments without British approval. The political regime. The Crown King Charles III is the head of state and serves a primarily ceremonial role, and the executive authority is exercised on the monarchy by the Governor General, who is appointed by the monarch with the Prime Minister's input. The people vote in order to elect legislators into Parliament. The Parliament then elects the Prime Minister, who is currently Mark Carney, who was elected in March of this year. There are three levels of federal government: the executive, provincial, municipal branches, and the Prime Minister is the head of the executive branch. Canada has a bicameral parliament composed of the House of Commons, where members of Parliament represent the public and pass legislation, and the Senate, where amendments are reviewed and presented to legislation. The judicial branch is independent of other branches, and the Supreme Court of Canada is their highest court. Canada has a multi-party system consisting of many competing political parties. The three main parties are the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, and the NDP, the New Democratic Party. Other significant parties are the Quebec Nationalists and the Green Party. Canada is characterized by their democratic principles, federalism, and their constitutional monarchy, ensuring a fair and certain representation of their people. And that is the hyperlink to the official sites. And for political conflicts and competition, there's a large political conflict between the multiple parties: the Liberal Party, Conservative Party, the NDP, the Quebec Nationalists, and the Green Party. They are consistently competing over issues like taxation, climate policy, healthcare, social issues, and government roles. This further creates ideological divides within Canadian politics. Western regions often are opposing federal policies on energy regulations, viewing them as a threat to their resource-based economics. Quebec consistently debates over language laws, autonomy, and even sovereignty. The Quebec Nationalists, a very rash party, embody this at the federal level. Indigenous rights and land claims have led to be central political debates, especially around the distribution of natural resources and their sovereignty. Conflicts over immigration and language policies are also a reflection of Canada's evolving multicultural and evolving society. Canada is generally characterized as being very progressive, diverse, and multicultural. Canadians generally support policies like abortion, euthanasia, same-sex marriage, passing cannabis laws, and have an emphasis on cultural diversity. They generally have liberal views on social and political issues, and respect for the law, gender equality, and a strong belief in universal access to publicly funded health services. They have big influence from their native population, and they have two main languages, French and English. And although the country is generally seen as openly multicultural, there's a large divide between the two languages, as many French-speaking Canadians want there to be only be French, and some want there to be only be English. And that is embodied by the Quebec nationalists, as they sometimes want a separation and can do rash things, sometimes even like terrorist attacks, which, okay. And this is my table. This is ethnic groups and the percent per population. And as said before, Indigenous makes up 5%, and it's just a pretty big amount. Okay. And political economy. It's a resource-driven economy, so they heavily rely on their extraction of oil and gases, but this goal interferes with their climate change commitments. This causes political tensions between their environmental policies and their economic interests. Significant power is granted to the provinces, specifically over their natural resources, healthcare, and education. This leads to provinces wanting different things and an uneven economic development, as some regions are resource-rich and some rely on manufacturing or service-based goods. This causes disputes between regions of the country. Canada has big trade dependency and is significant in the global economy. Its most significant partner is the U.S., with many trade agreements which help structure its economic policies and build economy. But this makes Canada vulnerable to shifts in the U.S. politics, as Canada relies on their exports, and as such, this reliance builds a strong economy, but can make them vulnerable to their global partners. This demand makes them maintain competition and keep up with evolving international standards. And this graph shows that the amount that each country spends on Canadian exports. So Mexico spends about $17 billion, and U.S. is close to $450 billion, and others are like all below $50 billion, just putting emphasis on how much we rely on the U.S. or how much Canada relies on the U.S. In foreign relations. The U.S. has been seen as Canada's strongest ally, as it is the country's most significant economic, cultural, and security ties, and are closely connected through trade agreements and collaboration on defense. Canada is also a founding member of NATO and plays an active role in defense efforts and contributes troops all over the world in countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, and many more. Canada is known for its peacekeeping role in supporting the United Nations, promoting global cooperation to work towards peace, human rights, and development. Canada has an often strained and complex relationship with China, but has strong trade links. There's evident economic interdependence, and there's been conflict as Canada has criticized China's beliefs on human rights.
8 minutes.
The current issues. The United States imposing of steep tariffs on Canadian exports has strained relations between the countries, and this has caused a lack of trust and frustration between the governments, but as well as civilians. Canada has a long history of colonization and violence against its Indigenous people, but reconciliation has been slow, and this has caused discussions of land rights and sovereignty for Indigenous people in Canada. And Canada has committed to climate change goals, aiming to reduce greenhouse gases emissions and transition to a net zero economy by 2050. Immigration is a divisive issue, as there is issues to tackle between welcoming newcomers and addressing issues like employment and housing for those that are already Canadian citizens. So I'll give you all.